She asked Barron Trump for a $50 tip, half joking, half desperate. What he did next, it didn't just change her life, it triggered a national wave no one saw coming. This isn't the story you think it is, and the ending will leave you speechless. It was just another slow Tuesday afternoon at a small roadside diner tucked into the rolling countryside of upstate New York. The kind of place that smelled like old coffee and fresh pancakes, where locals gathered out of habit, and the jukebox hadn't played a new song since 1999. The rain tapped gently against the windows, the gray sky casting a sleepy shadow over the booths, most of which sat empty. The usual lunch crowd had come and gone, and the hum of the overhead lights was now louder than the conversations, because there weren't any. For Emily, a 26-year-old waitress grinding through her third double shift that week, it was shaping up to be another forgettable day. She wiped down a table with practiced boredom, her apron stained with ketchup and coffee, her ponytail damp from the humidity. Bills were due, tips were low, and her sneakers were soaked from the morning walk in the rain. She sighed, picked up a chipped coffee mug, and glanced out the window, just in time to see a sleek black SUV glide into the parking lot. Weird, she thought. Way too clean for a car in this town. From the SUV emerged a tall young man, dressed in a dark hoodie, jeans, and expensive sneakers. He wore sunglasses, despite the gloomy sky, and was flanked by two men who looked like undercover agents. Earpieces, scanning eyes, hands never far from their waistbands. Emily froze mid-step. Wait, is that? She squinted harder. The hair, the height, the familiar but grown-up features. Is that Barron Trump? She blinked in disbelief. He was taller than she expected, probably 6 feet 6 inches now, and though the hoodie and shades disguised him well, the resemblance was uncanny. The diner door opened with a soft ding. Rain misted in behind him. The entire place seemed to pause, the air itself shifting slightly as he walked in. No press, no camera flashes, no dramatic entrance. Just a quiet 18-year-old, if that, entering like any other customer. He picked the farthest booth from the window, sat down without fuss, and looked over the menu as if it actually mattered. One of the agents gave Emily a brief nod, just enough to let her know everything was under control, but she should probably act normal. So she did. Sort of. She grabbed her notepad and walked over, trying to keep her voice from trembling. Hi there, welcome. Can I get you something to drink? He looked up, gave a polite half-smile and said, Chocolate shake, please. And I'll have the cheeseburger with fries. His tone was soft, respectful, almost shy. Emily jotted it down, nodded, and turned away, trying to breathe. She didn't know it then, but what would happen over the next 15 minutes? Would flip her life upside down. Emily had served all kinds of customers in her 3 years at the diner. Truck drivers, college kids, tired moms, even a country singer once. But none had ever come with security detail, or been a Trump. Still, she did her job. She brought out the food, burger stacked high, fries golden and crisp, and a chocolate shake so thick it almost bent the straw. She set the plate down gently in front of him and smiled. Let me know if you need anything else. Thanks, he said, looking up from his phone for a brief moment. His voice was calm, like someone used to being watched, but never quite comfortable with it. Emily stepped back, pretending to wipe the counter while secretly watching from the corner of her eye. He ate slowly, thoughtfully, not scarfing down the food like most guys his age. He didn't ask for ketchup, didn't look around for attention. Just sat quietly in the corner like someone trying not to be seen, which was ironic given who he was. Her co-workers whispered from behind the kitchen window. Is that really him? Why is he here? Think he tips? The last question stuck in her mind. Emily wasn't the type to ask customers for anything. She prided herself on being polite, professional, and unfazed. But that week, her rent had gone up, her car had broken down, and her younger brother had just called to say his student loan got denied. She was exhausted. She was broke. And suddenly, here sat Barron Trump, eating a $17 meal with 2 agents parked outside in an armored SUV. You only live once, she muttered under her breath, then approached his table again. Everything okay with your meal? He nodded. Yeah, it's really good. She hesitated, chewing her lip for a second. Then the words slipped out, part sarcasm, part desperation. So, do people like you leave normal tips or presidential ones? Because I could really use a 50 right now. The moment hung in the air. It was quiet, a little awkward. Barron blinked, then leaned back slightly in his seat. He studied her, not with offense, but with genuine curiosity. His expression didn't harden. If anything, it softened. What's your name? He asked. Emily. He reached for his phone. Tap. Tap. Swipe. Tap. She tried to peek but couldn't see what he was doing. Then he said simply, Emily, you're going to get more than 50. She stared, confused. Wait, what? Not just for the service, he said, sliding his phone into his pocket. For your honesty. And before she could say anything more, he stood up, nodded politely, and walked out the door with his agents following closely behind. What Emily didn't know was that her bold little question had just triggered something far bigger than she ever imagined. Emily stood frozen beside the booth, still gripping her notepad as the door swung shut behind Barron Trump and his security team. The moment felt like a dream, unreal, unfinished. More than 50? What did that even mean? She looked around the empty diner, wondering if anyone else had heard it. But no, the few remaining customers were deep in their own burgers and conversations. It was just her, the rain, and that strange echo of his final words. Before she could process it, one of the plainclothes agents returned. He walked straight to the counter with calm, deliberate steps. Emily's heart jumped. Hi, she said nervously. The man didn't smile. He simply held out a small, crisp white card and said, Your manager, please. Emily blinked. Sure. 1 second. She ran to the back, explained the situation, and her manager, Dale, wiped his hands on a towel and followed her out. The agent spoke to him quietly for a few minutes. Dale nodded, looked surprised, then nodded again. Emily couldn't hear everything, but caught the last line. It's part of a private outreach initiative. No media. No press. Just small businesses that deserve attention. The agent handed Dale a second card, this one black, embossed with a seal, and then left without another word. What was that? Emily asked. They're featuring our diner, Dale said, his eyes wide. Some kind of spotlight program. Social media campaign. Said we'd hear more soon. Emily's mouth opened, then closed. What just happened? Later that evening, long after the rain stopped and her shift had ended, Emily was cleaning the same booth Barron had sat in. Under the napkin holder, she found something folded in half. It wasn't a receipt. It wasn't a note for the kitchen. It was a handwritten message, written in neat, calm penmanship. Sometimes asking takes more courage than staying silent. Thank you for being real. B. And underneath it, a folded stack of crisp bills. She slowly opened it, her hands trembling. $1,000. 10 $100 bills. No tip line on the receipt. No signed check. Just cash, a quiet note, and a moment that didn't feel real. Oh my God, she whispered, staring down at it. She could hardly believe it. Not just the amount, but the way he'd done it. No audience. No credit. No cameras. Just a simple gesture in a small-town diner that nobody expected him to visit. By the next morning, the diner's Instagram had a new photo. Barron in the booth, sipping his shake, head down. The caption read, Great food. Real people. The heart of America. And within 24 hours, the photo would go viral. But none of that mattered yet. In that quiet moment, as the storm passed outside and the wind carried the scent of fresh rain, Emily sat down in the booth where Barron had eaten, holding a note that reminded her of something she had nearly forgotten. Sometimes kindness doesn't need to be loud. By the time Emily woke up the next morning, everything had changed. Her phone, normally quiet except for occasional group texts and spam calls, was blowing up. Messages, missed calls, notifications from Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn. Confused and still half asleep, she opened Instagram first and nearly dropped her phone. The diner's account, which barely had 300 followers the day before, now had over 12,000. The post was everywhere. Barron Trump sitting quietly in the back booth, chocolate shake in hand, with the caption, "Great food. Real people. The heart of America." It had been posted by someone from Barron's team, and it had gone viral overnight. Comments flooded in. "Didn't know Barron was like this. Respect. That's my hometown diner. So proud. Supporting small businesses without making a show of it. This is how it's done. Wait, is this the story with the $1,000 tip? Wait, how did they know about the tip?" Turns out, someone had snapped a photo of Emily holding the handwritten note he left behind. They hadn't posted the money, just the message. Sometimes asking takes more courage than staying silent. Thank you for being real. That one sentence hit something deep in people. It was shared, reposted, quoted on motivational pages, and even retweeted by a few big-name influencers. By noon, the diner had made more money than it usually did in an entire week. Lines formed outside. Local news vans showed up. People drove from neighboring towns just to sit in the now famous Barron booth. Emily tried to keep up. She worked double shifts, barely had time to breathe, and answered the same questions again and again. What was he like? Did you really ask for a $50 tip? What did you think when you saw the note? She stayed humble, grateful, overwhelmed. But not everyone was kind. Some online voices began to criticize the gesture. Political stunt. Scripted moment. That tip was just hush money. News anchors debated it on morning shows. Pundits turned it into politics. And a few late-night comedians used it for punchlines. But amid all the noise, something else began to surface, something far more powerful. Other waiters and waitresses began sharing their own stories of customers who changed their lives. Hashtags like #RealTipStories and #BarronBooth started trending. The ripple effect was undeniable. And then came the unexpected twist. A non-profit organization that helps young workers in the hospitality industry reached out to Emily. They wanted to name a scholarship after her for servers pursuing education in business, public service, or hospitality. The girl who nervously asked for a $50 tip was now the face of a national movement she never intended to start. Weeks passed, but the buzz never fully faded. The diner had a fresh coat of paint, new booths, and even a chalkboard sign out front that read, "Home of the Barron Booth," where one question changed everything. Locals and tourists alike stopped in for a meal, a photo, or just to ask, "Is this where it happened?" But Emily? She stayed the same, apron on, hair tied back, taking orders with the same soft smile. Fame hadn't turned her into someone else. In fact, it made her more grounded. Behind the counter, next to the coffee machine, hung a shadow box frame. Inside it was the handwritten note Barron had left, protected in glass. Sometimes asking takes more courage than staying silent. Thank you for being real. B. Next to it, a printed photo of Emily holding a coffee pot, laughing with a customer. And under that, $1,000 tip never cashed. Gratitude never forgotten. Emily had decided not to spend a single dollar of that tip. Not because she didn't need it, she did. But because it wasn't about the money anymore. "It's a reminder," she once told a reporter, "of a moment when someone powerful saw me, not as a waitress, but as a person." What struck people wasn't just the money. It was the way it happened, quiet, respectful, without cameras or announcements. It didn't feel like a celebrity flexing wealth. It felt like a moment of humanity. Barron never returned to the diner. No press conferences, no interviews. But Emily sometimes wondered if he knew just how far that moment had gone. The scholarship launched in her name helped send 3 students to culinary school that year. Her old high school invited her to speak at their graduation ceremony, where she told the seniors, "You never know what moment might change your life or someone else's. So speak up, be kind, and never be afraid to ask." And perhaps the most touching change of all, Emily's younger brother, the one who'd been denied that student loan, was offered a full ride by a donor who saw their story online. He now studies public policy, hoping to help others the way someone helped his sister. For Emily, all of this still felt surreal, and when she sat alone in that booth at the end of her shift, wiping the table and staring at that framed note, she sometimes smiled to herself. "All I did was ask," she'd whisper, "and someone chose to listen." The quietest moments often echo the loudest, and sometimes the most powerful gesture isn't shouted, posted, or performed. It's the kind done when no one's looking. That changes everything. In a world where most people stay silent, one bold question changed everything. It wasn't about fame or money. It was about being seen and the courage to ask. Barron Trump's quiet response didn't just leave a tip. It left a lesson. Direct it. So what would you do in her place? Would you have asked? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life inspired stories that make you think, feel, and maybe even believe a little more in humanity. Speech Balloon, drop a comment below. We read every one.